Today I rise to speak on the behalf of the people of Canning, my constituents, the families, the workers and the small business owners who embody the very best of our nation. The people living in my patch are hard-working, self-reliant and deeply community-minded. They don't ask much from government, just a fair go, respect and the freedom to get on with their lives. And our community is resilient, ambitious and proud. We stand together in tough times and we celebrate each other's success. And that's the spirit of Canning, which is the Peel region, for those of you who don't live in WA, and I'm very proud to represent them in this place. This year I was honoured to be re-elected as the member for Canning. After a redistribution that reduced our margin to just 1.2%, I was grateful that my constituents once again placed their trust in me. We achieved a strong result with a 5.4% swing and a margin of over 13,000 votes. And I'm deeply grateful for the support shown by our community and the way they've sent me back to Canberra to be their voice here in this chamber. Our result was a testament to the strength and unity of our local community, and the grassroots campaign we ran focused on issues that affect real people. We didn't campaign in the abstract, we campaigned very much in concrete terms. And while national security concerns dominated headlines, my campaign was firmly local. Every day I met with residents, listened to their concerns and committed to fighting for the things that matter most to them. And today I bring their voices into this chamber. My team and I campaigned on the issues that mattered to them: cost of living, local infrastructure and community safety. We campaigned on health, and for nearly a decade the Western Australian government has promised to a $152 million upgrade to the Peel Health Campus. When they put that figure to the public in 2021, $152 million, that was before we'd seen inflation over the last 4 years. That's now about $180 million. They haven't increased the funding in real terms, so we've actually taken a cut, a $30 million cut to the upgrade. Now, that promise has been repeated in press releases, budget papers and media statements, but the reality on the ground hasn't changed. 1 year after the hospital was handed back into public hands, with great fanfare from Labor, there's still been no redevelopment, no new facilities and no relief for the families, children and seniors in my community. Ambulance ramping is at record highs, doctors and nurses are exhausted, and clinicians warn the system is in a death spiral. It's not just incompetence, this is actually really dangerous. People are left waiting in emergency, people are even sent away, and I have countless stories from seniors particularly who are really struggling. For seniors who need to see a geriatrician, they have to wait up to 18 months. And some of them, by the time they get to see a geriatrician, they've had further decline, whether it be physical or cognitive, and some have even passed on. So we have a very acute health crisis in my electorate. Now, Labor's own member for Mandurah has admitted the funding isn't enough, yet the Premier continues to sit on a multi-billion-dollar surplus while our hospital bursts at the seams. We all know the WA budget is doing better than most other jurisdictions, and yet we're not seeing the investment in our health system that we need. And so locals are angry. They've shared their shocking experiences at Peel Health Campus. They're angry, and they have every right to be. And I'm calling it as I see it. This is a betrayal of my community. So I'll keep fighting until the Peel Health Campus is fixed. No more spin, no more empty promises, just action. Because, Deputy Speaker, our community deserves better. And it's not just in health. Right across the Peel region, we are being let down on the infrastructure that underpins our daily lives. We need infrastructure that keeps pace with growth: roads, public transport and community facilities. People travelling to and from Perth every day on the Kwinana Freeway experience a massive opportunity cost. A journey that used to take about 70 minutes now can take up to 2 hours at a time, and that opportunity cost is time with family, time exercising, time doing admin and other important things that happen in our daily lives. And Labor, for a decade now, has promised a train station at Carnup, and for a decade now they failed to deliver it. Another train station would help a lot of my constituents and would provide another alternative form of transport to and from the city every day. But we've got no funding, we've got no timeline and we've got no commitment. The land on which the train station will be built sits vacant, while our growing suburbs of Carnup, Singleton, Golden Bay and Secret Harbour, suburbs recently added to my electorate as part of the redistribution, are ignored. They're taken for granted by Labor. Not even a mention in the latest state budget. It's pretty shameful, and a lot of people agree. These are vibrant, fast-growing areas, and they deserve the same level of infrastructure investment as the rest of the region. I'll also note that they're also part of the AUKUS catchment, so we have a growing presence of Royal Australian Navy families, defence families, people involved in the future AUKUS industrial base. And I should also add that we're going to see Americans moving in over the next couple of years as well. Admiral Cordell, who's a senior US naval officer, said from 3,000 to 9,000 Americans over the next 5 years or so. That's a lot of people to integrate into our community. They're very welcome to come. I'm sure they'll bring a lot of opportunity as well. There are a lot of spouses in the US military who are teachers and nurses. We have shortages in both. And I hope this government here is working on ensuring that they can be employed in our communities when they arrive. I also want to note as well that my electorate will take in about 25% of the new defence housing which has been slated to support AUKUS. So we need more investment from the federal government and from the state government as well. But instead we're being left behind. The Carnup train station is a key data point for that. Labor's failure to act is not just a broken promise, it's a clear message that these communities just aren't a priority. Now, I've raised this time and again, and I've launched a petition to hold the Cook Labor government to account. A station at Carnup isn't a luxury, it's just a necessity. People don't expect us to make fanfare when we deliver these things, they just expect government to do. They pay taxes, they expect government to do these projects and do them on time. The train station would ease pressure on nearby stations, reduce congestion and give families the access they deserve. Labor wants us to forget about it, but I won't. That's why I'm speaking. And I'm more than happy to raise state issues as well, because most constituents, they just want a better future for their families, they want a fair go. And whether it's local, state or federal, I'll keep fighting for my people. Now, I first heard about the need for a local train station while I was door knocking back in 2016. Locals were frustrated, ignored by their Labor MPs and fed up with broken promises. Despite fierce resistance from WA Labor, we stood firm and we delivered the Lakelands train station. Let's not forget that Labor ministers publicly dismissed the project. Rita Safiotti called it embarrassing, Paul Papalia said it was a station no one needs, and David Templeman sat at the cabinet table for years without delivering a cent for the Lakelands train station. Yet when the station finally opened in June 2023, closing a 23-kilometre gap in the Mandurah rail line, they were very fast to show up for photo opportunities. That station wasn't delivered by Labor, it was delivered by the people of Lakelands who refused to give up, and I'm proud to have stood shoulder to shoulder with them, and together we got it done. And I'll do the same with those living in and around Carnup. Now, that same determination for a fair go on infrastructure is driving our campaign to reinstate the Pinjarra heavy haulage deviation. This is another critical infrastructure project that WA Labor abandoned, despite its clear benefits to safety, heritage and quality of life. Hundreds of trucks thunder through the heart of Pinjarra. Pinjarra is a beautiful old historic town right in the centre of the Peel region, settled around the 1830s. And every day we have these big trucks carrying huge loads, whether it be jarrah logs, whether it be minerals, critical minerals that have been mined, or whether it be massive mining equipment, which often needs an escort front and rear. These trucks pass through our little town and people are getting tired of it. We've invested money to make that a tourist town, and these big trucks make it very difficult for locals. So the deviation would divert heavy vehicles away from the town centre, it would protect local families, businesses and the character of our community, which is sitting there on the Murray River, very beautiful part of the world. Now, Labor's decision to cut funding for the deviation is short-sighted and reckless. We're not backing down. Just like we did with the Lakelands train station, we'll keep fighting until Pinjarra gets the infrastructure it needs. But this isn't the only way that Labor is letting down regional and outer metropolitan communities. Labor's cost of living crisis has hit outer metro and regional Australia hardest. Fuel costs are up, many people drive, there's limited public transport, so Everyone has petrol or diesel costs in their family budget. Health premiums are up. There's a real lack of confidence in the public health sector run by Labor, so people are paying health premiums, but they're creeping up, and mortgage and rental costs are up. We have a housing demand crisis. I've seen people at my local beach get out of their car in the morning after sleeping in the car, take a shower at the beach showers, and then go off to work. This is Australia in 2025. We have an abundance of geography here, but somehow we have this housing shortage. It's a housing demand crisis, and I think this is because Labor's uncontrolled immigration has caused a lot of pressure on the housing sector. From the years 2000 to 2019, the net overseas migration average figure was 190,000 people. Labor in the last 2 years has brought in about 500,000 people, and we wonder why we're struggling for housing. We shouldn't have people living in their cars. We shouldn't have kids living in caravan parks. We shouldn't have kids living in tents in the backyards of friends. It's shameful. And it's always in the outer metropolitan and the regional areas where people do it tough are hurt the worst. And now Labor has introduced a new tax on the vehicles Australians rely on most. The diesel Prados, the diesel Rangers, Land Cruisers, MUXs, D-Maxs, they're the workhorses of outer metropolitan and regional Australia. If you come down to the school where my kids go every morning, you'll see mums and dads dropping their kids off in four-wheel drives and utes because their partner's a tradie, or they work on the mines, or they just like to go four-wheel driving because that's why they're living in the regions. And Labor's so-called fuel efficiency standard is nothing more than a car and ute tax. It's driving up the cost of popular vehicles like the Ford Ranger, the Toyota Hilux and Mitsubishi Outlander, vehicles that are essential for people living in my community. And I mentioned the metaphor, the workhorse of our local economy. It's true. My community, more than 100 years ago, relied on horses for the local economy. We provided a good number of light horsemen that fought in the First World War. These vehicles do the same job today. These are the vehicles that tow the boats, the floats and their caravans. Tradies, farmers and families shouldn't be punished for driving the vehicles they need. And Labor's fuel efficiency standard is driving up costs and limiting choice, hurting the very people who keep our economy moving. We have very, very few electric vehicle charging stations. We have very few, but we've got a lot of people paying fuel excise. We've got a lot of people paying fuel excise. It's not just bad policy, but it's an attack on our way of life. And while they're taxing our utes, Labor is also pushing ahead with a massive offshore wind farm off my southern coast, all the way down the coast to Dunsborough, a beautiful stretch of the WA coastline. And they're doing this without proper consultation and against the wishes of my community. The proposed zone spans thousands of square kilometres of ocean, just 26 kilometres from our coastline, and not far south from the proposed AUKUS submarine base. Now, this project threatens our local environment, it threatens tourism, and it threatens our recreational activities. It risks damaging marine life, ocean floors and bird habitats. We're very proud of our whales in WA, we're proud of our dolphins, and these are the sorts of creatures that live in our oceans which will be affected by these wind farms. It will impose enormous costs on Australian families and businesses because, let's be frank, wind power only works when the wind is blowing. And there is incredibly expensive transmission infrastructure which needs to be built to connect these solar and wind farms that Labor are putting all over our country. And I think one thing that is overlooked is that these wind farms and a lot of these solar panels, if not all, are manufactured overseas, often in China, using our fossil fuels, whether it be coal or gas that we export. It's a reality that this country exports 25% of the world's coal, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. It's a huge source of revenue. It underwrites the NDIS, it underwrites health, it underwrites our welfare system. And so whilst Australians are being forced to pay more for their energy needs, countries who we export are getting their energy much, much cheaper, which makes them more competitive long term. And so what we're doing is under this government, we're seeing local communities and their wishes overridden. We're seeing inefficient, expensive and environmentally damaging solar and wind farms pushed on local communities. They're outsourcing emissions. This is a government that does a lot of carbon leakage. They claim they're green, but they do a lot of carbon leakage. And they're increasing our dependence on foreign supply chains. We're not building these wind farms. We're not making the solar farms. We're importing them from China. So effectively, we're dismantling our comparative advantage in energy, which comes from our coal, our gas. We could have nuclear power because we've got a lot of uranium. We're dismantling that comparative advantage and we're making ourselves dependent on the importation of power made overseas. I think it's unfair and it's unsustainable. Now, another issue is the unbearable odour affecting residents in the northern suburbs of my electorate. And for those here, it might sound like a minor inconvenience, trivial even, but for those living with it, this smell emanating from waste and compost facilities is making homes unlivable and outdoor spaces unusable, particularly in summer when temperatures hit 35 plus and you get a roaring easterly out to the coast. These smells are dumped on a lot of our coastal community living in the north of the electorate. Kids can't play outside and people can't open their windows in the middle of summer. In fact, I still remember door knocking in Singleton and an elderly couple came to the door and everyone else in the street was talking about the stink and they said, we can't even turn our air conditioning on because it smells like blood and bone in our living room if we do. So this is a serious disruption to their lives, their health and their homes. I've held community meetings, I've called for action from the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation and invited the Minister for Environment to see the impact firsthand. And this is just one of the many challenges facing our community. But despite this, my constituents remain hopeful. They are proud of their community and they are determined to build a better future. I just want to acknowledge the people who come up to me in the street, have a chat. They might give me a word of encouragement. Some of my favourite moments are, in fact, shopping at Coles in Halls Head, doing constituent work in the aisles. I still remember the seniors I spoke to recently who were trying to work out whether they could afford eggs for the week. You know, a great community, but rarely do I hear people whinge. They've always got constructive feedback or encouragement, and I thank them for that. I'm proud to be a leader in my community, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. Leadership is about service. That's what I learned over the lake there at the Australian Defence Force Academy and the Royal Military College Duntroon. The motto for ADFA is to lead to excel, and at Duntroon it's learning promotes strength. Leadership in those institutions was always about service, and it's a privilege to continue doing that in public office in this parliament. It's about listening, learning and standing firm in the face of adversity. It's about representing the values of the people who sent us here: hard work, honesty and a deep commitment to our country. Mr Speaker, our schools are filled with bright, curious and capable young Australians. They're ready to take on the world, but they need a future that they can believe in and one that they want to step into. A future built not on debt and decline, but on opportunity, stability, cohesion as a country and national pride. And that future begins with a commitment to the people we serve, not just in election years, but every single day. And it's not easy. We're all imperfect people. There is not a single perfect person on this earth, and particularly in politics, our imperfections can sometimes be magnified. That's just what comes with public office. But nonetheless, we need to fight for our constituents, for fairness, for prosperity, and for the dignity of every single Australian. That's what leadership demands. It's about standing firm when it counts, speaking up when others stay silent, and never forgetting who you represent. Now, before I conclude, I want to thank my campaign team who worked tirelessly through the rain on hot days because they believe in our community and our cause. I want to thank our volunteers who gave their time, energy and heart to our campaign. It's always encouraging when you meet new people who are willing to put on a T-shirt and stand with you. You know this, Deputy Speaker, because they believe in what you stand for. And so I want to thank all those people. I also want to thank my family, my wife Ruth and our children for their support and sacrifice. Next month I'll be 10 years in the Parliament. My wife has spent the last 10 years having kids and raising kids, often without me present, and she does it because she believes in what I do in this place. So I want to acknowledge my wife Ruth for her love and her support, but also my kids. My 3-year-old said to me on Friday, "Why don't you live with us anymore, Dad?" And which was hard to hear, but my 10-year-old boy and my 8-year-old daughter explained that I go to Parliament and I do it for a good reason, and I hope that one day she'll understand why I've taken this job on. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.